FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Pastor J, I want to get a tattoo.
You really want
to me. Respond to me how you would respond to me.
The first question I'll ask is why?
Controversial taboo topics.
We get so consumed by church, we forget that we have to live the life of being a Christian outside of the Sunday.
Like you say,
services, yeah.
we think going to a service makes us a Christian.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. So here we are about to hear the second time Pastor J wanted to take a tattoo.
Would have been late last year and early this year.
Oh gosh.
Hope Unfiltered podcast with Pastor J and Ren.
WESN.
Also, I need you to cut your hair because I don't like to look at my boyfriend looking dirty.
Don't cut your hair.
Sean, he take shave and cut his hair. He's looking vagrantly now.
Oh my God! God have mercy upon us.
Well, there have been some changes. Welcome to Talking Point. Sean Michael Small here. Yes, I know. Don't look quite the same. It is what it is. Yes, insert comment here. There's a lot of them that could be made. It is what it is. Now, I have some comments to make. Couple things to get off quickly so far. First of all, this is just an ongoing observation, but Stuart Young, he's come out to say that there's nothing new in oil and gas under the government. The only thing I'll say that is, I would imagine if the shoe was on the other foot and somebody was to say this about a PNM government that now came into office, you would get complaints about it's too soon, it's too soon. It's one of those things where the criticism might actually have some significance, but timing is everything. So not only are you jumping the gun potentially because do people really want to hear that right now? Unfortunately, the election is still not that far away, but we're getting there. We're feeling the transition as some people are seeing certain things that they don't like. But of course, do you really, to what degree does the loser, do their words and opinions carry the same weight that it normally would if you just assess the speaker in a vacuum? Because I would argue Stuart Young, at times at least, has shown a reasonable amount of intelligence and work ethic that is not common amongst the political class or the public persona subset of our society. Yes, let's put it that way. So, generally speaking, if he has something to say, while I'm not saying it's always going to be 100% accurate, it is something worthy of assessment. It's just that the specific circumstances of the moment, it inhibits the acceptance, I think, of a lot of what he has to say. Now, to some extent, it's not unfair because you could start initiatives when you now come into office, right? You could start something. If you want to complain that they haven't completed anything, well, that's different. Especially given the fact that for certain political decisions, they were more than willing to be decisive without taking their time. If their modus operandi across the board was, let's be careful, let's be steady, let's not upset the apple cart, let's look into every decision that we are potentially going to make before we make them, then it's different. Then I could have said, that's not how they're doing things right now. Maybe if you want to say they're too slow, that's fine, but they're being careful. But I can't say that because of what happened with CPEP, WASA, and the Revenue Authority. I can't. As much as I understand there were political promises with regards to the Revenue Authority and CPEP at least, we've already seen the 10% had to wait. More on that in a bit, perhaps, when we get there. So, I did express the sentiment that the meeting with Saudi Arabia and their company people for that energy company, and as well as any government officials or what have you, until we actually get significant details and then start to see implementation, doesn't really mean much of anything, right? We've already seen the government renege on a contract that they promised the country, this government, technically speaking. Now, but we'll move on from that right now. It's almost like if it's a bad sequel, and I'm slightly shocked to hear this. Hopefully this is much ado about nothing, but apparently Komal Maraj, the teacher that was kidnapped last year, he's been reported missing again. And this is the kind of thing where you don't really want to see a sequel, because tempting fate or having to deal with that level of risk, even if you don't opt into it yourself, assuming that that's the case, no one wants to have to go through that a second time. So, I don't know what to make of it. The family has reported him missing. They're cooperating with the police. This is... There are going to be probably more people than before that are going to ask, why is this teacher apparently being kidnapped? What is it that we don't know, right? Is it some personal vendetta? Is there more than meets the eye to the teacher? Don't know. Because at this point now, it's hard to say that random, unprofessional criminals are thinking, hey, let's get money by kidnapping this teacher. Do they have expectations his family is rich? But even then, like, he's a teacher. So one would think that for criminals, especially since it's already been tried once before, they would try another target. I don't know. This is not something that you see every day where a kidnapping victim previously is kidnapped again. It seems as though I don't think there was a ransom demand. And I believe that was a question about it last time as well. But it doesn't seem to be a ransom demand this time. So, but that is actually not the most tragic thing that I've read this morning. No, the most tragic thing I've read this morning is the police officer who quit because of how his colleagues, how the police service, he is a police officer, and how they handled his, I believe it's his mother's disappearance. Well, definitely her murder. I mean, this is one of the things that he said. They could not come to look for my mother. They could not come when she was missing. But they could come for the uniform. Because when he quit the TTPS, I believe it was the next day, they came to his home to collect the uniform. Because heaven forbid, he might do something with that uniform. You know what I mean? But there's a murder of a family member. Now, this is one of those things where, technically, it should not be the case that just because it's the relative of a police officer, special treatment is granted. But you have to juxtapose that with the practicality of, if family members or police officers are going to be treated this way, then what about the rest of us? If a police officer is not going to be content with how his colleagues handles his mother's case, what about the rest of us? Because at some point, yes, objectively speaking, he's not supposed to get preferential treatment. But at the end of the day, he's a police officer. So there should be, it's just human nature to think, oh, a fellow officer has an issue, let me try and help him out. Right? Doesn't necessarily be that more resources are expended, but at the very least, there would be more empathy, one would hope, by one's fellow officers. There would be instances, whether fair or unfair, certain areas where maybe the police, who are human and have human feelings, might have stereotype judgments of this street or that community or this house or that family, and they don't take certain things seriously. Or maybe because this area, people go missing all the time and then they turn up, so at some point the police get complacent. But when a fellow police officer says something might be wrong with one of my family members, it might not be official special treatment. It might be like, okay, we'll work extra overtime for you, not necessarily going to be paid for it, maybe. I don't know, right? Just the fact is, because you would want that to be done for you too, and it's a lot more direct when it's another police officer. So again, if he's going to be disgruntled by police customer service, as a police officer, think about it. If you're a bank employee, you don't expect the bank to give you a hard time. You know, usually in your place of employment, your boss might give you a hard time as an employee, but if you're looking to spend your money, your colleagues are not looking necessarily to give you a hard time unless you have some real bad office politics drama going on. So now he is insisting that his mother was murdered. The investigators believe she may have taken her own life, but he is insisting, no, murder. And he is alleging corruption within the police service. And this is not a young officer. He's been an officer reportedly for 11 years. The fact of the matter is, there is a possibility that the police are correct. I don't know what the evidence is. But this is where people in public positions need to understand that they have to, not they may, they have to. It is a necessity. It behooves them to the most urgent degree to positively and always directly manage expectations. Proactively, not reactively, because reactive ain't managing expectations, it's damage control. And that works just about as well as a singing monkey, which actually could potentially work well. But regardless, if you can't even realistically manage the expectations of an officer who's essentially the family member to a victim of what could be a crime, what about the rest of us? So because his expectations were not managed properly, that's the low-hanging fruit. He could be correct and it's all the way down to corruption. I'm just starting from the benefit of the doubt position. Let's not work our way all the way to the extremes. By not managing expectations, by not figuring out, you have to figure it out, not us. You have to figure out how, when, where to be transparent. To what degree can I be transparent? How often should I be transparent? Because at this point I'm getting rather frustrated by the ineptitude of public communication that is so bad, now you even have a former officer who quit over situations. Usually the complaint will be, well, the public doesn't know. The public doesn't know what goes on behind the scenes. Maybe this officer doesn't know what goes on with murder investigations. I'm not sure. But at the very least, he knows more about police dealings and workings than non-police people, and he's disgruntled. What does that say? Because far too many people in a public position want to basically hide behind nonsense like, oh, well, it's before the court, I can't speak about anything. Oh, I'm not going to reveal national security plans for the criminals. Buying body cameras is not revealing tactical details. Because it will be very apparent after day one, oh, you know, they all have body cameras now. That's not no strategic surprise you're going to get by saying, let's not talk about it. Saying you're going to invest in certain pieces of technology, that surprise factor is going to work only so much. They'll figure it out. And at the very least, once you hopefully initiate it, you can at least, to some extent, speak about it on a macro level at that point. But perhaps I'm using words that are too large for public officials to understand. Words like macro, that might be too many letters. I need to try and limit myself to 3-letter words, or less, apparently. It might not be 100% fair on the officers involved. But when one of your own is upset over things that the public is complaining about, maybe the problem isn't us. Maybe the problem is you. Just say it. Apparently, ACP Kurt Simon is saying that the investigation into the whole Brent Thomas affair is in its final stretch. Now, the thing is, and this might be unfair to DCP Martin, but if this is not resolved in a proactive manner with an actual resolution, whether she is innocent or guilty, I'm not assuming a conclusion here, but what we need is a conclusion that does not involve uncertainty, because it will hang over our head. It will hang over our head. Especially if there's anything to suggest that she's obscuring things for whatever reason. And it doesn't have to be that she's guilty, that she's obscuring things, you know. It doesn't have to be that. Let me make that clear. But it seems to be that there was way too much politics involved in the police service. And on a side note, we have to ask the question, is politics still involved in the police service? Monkey see, monkey do? One doesn't justify the other one doing it, especially when we've complained about it for I don't know how long at this point. But this whole Brent Thomas thing suggests someone way above her pay grade at the time, and I'm not talking about anybody at the police executive level, because nobody in the TTPS had the authority to do what it did. Now I get it, there's technicalities and investigations and criminal prosecutions. So it's an active investigation. We don't need necessarily micro details or certain macro details in this case, but we need to see it come to a proper fruition. Because if it doesn't, here's the real twist. Because some people will think, oh, it'll hang over Suzette Martin's head until, you know, the day she's forgotten, basically. Just like how certain things hang over the head of public figures of old, like the flying squad. Look at what's going on with Dr. Eric Williams now in the political debate on the history of TNT. Just say it. Certain things will hang over your head. They are critics of Dr. Eric Williams. No, if this does not come to fruition, it will further undermine the trust and confidence in the police service to, one, conduct investigations into itself, and two, conduct any sort of serious investigations into allegations of potential corruption. Because at some point, it's not the public that can take the blame. We didn't do this. There's no misunderstanding here. There's no benign explanation to make this go away. And if our society is willing to forget about it, if we just don't speak about it after a few months, well then, that might be one of the most depressing things that I could come up with since the Paria tragedy. Because that would more or less be a signal that our principles are really non-existent or they're gone. Now, I'll close the segment with this. TKR got an award, a bronze. I want to get this correct. TKR got a national award, right? A Shikonia medal. Well, the report says gold, but I was under the impression it was a bronze. Anyway, I could be very wrong what I'm saying, right? There's been questions about if the award is deserved. And I think people might misunderstand. This is my interpretation of it. They did not get an award because they won now. They got an award because they've won multiple times. And it's not necessarily just about the players, although the current players, yes, will have to be the ones to be the players that receive the award. But to me, it's more about the franchise. And you could say this is politics and, you know, is it deserved or not on that level? Is it necessary? But the franchise is being awarded for a period of winning, not just one championship. Because one championship, that's cute. But now, if you're able to string together victories, now there's further acknowledgement of that. This is my interpretation. Do I like it? Do I hate it? I am indifferent to it, to be honest. It doesn't really mean that much to me. I do think, though, that perhaps it is a good thing that at least the politicians are willing to acknowledge. But perhaps the acknowledgement, how it was done, was maybe not the best way. This could be a lack of vision, a lack of creativity on behalf of our political class that only really knows how to do things that has been done before and very rarely knows how to think and implement outside of the box. But is it a big deal? I don't believe it's as big a deal as some people think. Life goes on. The sad part about it is, I don't think this undermines the awards in any way or to any significant degree, but I do think that most national awards in this country are looked at kind of as unimportant or insignificant or, in some extremes, a joke. Because we don't necessarily... Granted, part of that is because things like the Grammys and the Oscars more and more are seen as less relevant and to some extremes, in some quarters, a joke, no longer a proper, true signifier of excellence, but rather just activism and political messaging and a set of nonsense. There's some truth in that. I wouldn't say it's completely true. Art is subjective. National awards are not supposed to be quite as subjective, but there's still some subjectivity. But I get it. It's a sentiment of what award shows right now. And our awards probably have never been looked at to be that. Yes, you know, we will give it respect, but it's not like back in the day what winning an Oscar or Grammy meant. When at its heyday, it was almost the be-all and end-all for their respective industries. Our national awards, the be-all and end-all of our society, or at least on that level where we take the winners that seriously, that we look at them in that different of a light, or not. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll get into the Prime Minister's remarks. There was, on several topics she spoke about her address to the UN, and during that period she was away. And some interesting results from a Caribbean poll. Stay tuned. Well, essentially that's what it is, right? A public vote. People's choice. Interesting. Stay tuned. We'll talk about that next afterwards.
Maybe he landed here totally by coincidence. But if by chance he's admiring your fresh coat of Benjamin Moore soft sky blue, well, that's a pretty high compliment. Coming from an expert.
Low energy? Heart concerns? Migraines slowing you down? It's time to take control of your health. Join Wellness Unlocked, the series that brings expert advice and real solutions for a healthier you. In our latest episode, learn how Jameson CoQ10 can help support heart health, boost energy, and even reduce migraines. Get the science, the stories, and the steps to power up your health with CoQ10. Don't miss Wellness Unlocked. Watch now on WESN and start your wellness journey today.
My name is Dr. Joanne Williams-Carroll, and I am the Director of Behavioral and Mental Health at the Community Hospital. At the Community Hospital, we believe in nurturing mind, body, and soul. Through our counseling and chaplaincy program, we will provide you with support and strength you need to help with your mental and emotional well-being. Give us a call.
The Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
International diplomacy. One thing's, you know, we all hold hands and our ambassadors have cocktails and drinks and say how much they like each other, and then they say, all right, we all respect everybody and let's come to a consensus and it's easy. And no, it's not. International diplomacy is difficult. Between two countries, it's difficult. Once you get more countries involved, it's downright, at times, near impossible. That's why you have things like the EU, which is a union of European states. But the problem is, it's not like the United States, which is states that make up a country. It's countries that make up a body that has legislative authority that has been given up. Say, countries gave up their sovereignty in the EU, and that has been contentious because at the end of the day, every nation has its own issues and therefore its own agendas. Even within the EU, there are international agendas, or sorry, national agendas that I would, my amateur self, right, would call international politics. It's not just about trying to find common ground. That's not what, in my view, international relations is. That's what it might be, you know, negotiating things, trying to find compromises, working with each other. First of all, the global village of the world ain't what it used to be. COVID kind of sorted that. But even before, at the end of the day, international diplomacy was a means to an end. The end was each nation's own national agenda. So now, the Prime Minister goes to the UN, and there's a lot of things with regards to the Prime Minister going to here. First of all, the chairing section was one of the few things I saw that went viral that my circle or my network on social media picked up on was memes about her chairing section of her boys, right? But she addresses the UN. This is a big deal. This is a big deal. Now, other Caribbean leaders did it. Our Prime Minister is also doing it. I do wonder if, here's the thing, the UN is a big deal and it's not. It's hard to explain, but at the end of the day, the reason why is what I said about the EU. Everybody has their own agenda, right? Not entirely sure what the camera was zooming in on there, but hey, it is what it is. So interesting that the minister in the office of the Prime Minister was not left to help the acting Prime Minister. But I guess Stuart Young did go with Dr. Rowley on multiple trips. Usually it was over oil and gas, but you know, maybe she needed help at the UN. Now, one of the most controversial things, it's not necessarily the only controversial thing that she spoke about, but one of the most controversial things was her statements with regards to the American interdiction, and more importantly, and this is the thing, she's speaking to a sentiment that I think locally our people have had based on anecdotal feedback on this show with regards to callers. Not necessarily, I don't think the callers were looking to go to the extremes, but that was the direction. To some extent, fight fire with fire. Take the gloves off. Treat them more strictly, potentially more harshly. Have more severe measures to deal with criminals. People were tired of, why are we worried about protecting them and protecting their rights? The criminals. And Kamala, I believe, all this time was absorbing that osmosis. This is what my people are saying. I'm going to embrace it because this is seemingly what they want to hear. So then what does she do? Long before the election, she starts up with the gun talk. Empty the matic, empty the clip. And there was some pushback for it, but I think not a lot of pushback, or not enough to dissuade her from this current course of action. Because again, people kind of wanted a tough on crime approach. The problem is tough on crime approach usually means police measures, but then when the police do something like shoot criminals, all of a sudden there's questions. Not necessarily invalid, but at the end of the day, we're not necessarily always comfortable with talk of police violence, right? And I believe now it is international politics. When people say that she is siding with the Americans on the issue, that's basically what it is. I'm not saying it's not, but I think part of why she's doing it is because I think not necessarily that the people say that we want you to do this, but rather based on what people have been saying about crime in the years leading up to this year and leading up to this point, it might be more acceptable than we think. Because at the end of the day, this is the extreme end of that philosophy. Let's be more strict with them. Well, you can't get more strict than slapping them with anti-terrorism laws and then, on top of that, shooting first and asking questions later. Now, when Obama was doing it to suspected terrorists, to some extent, we didn't necessarily harp on that too much. Somehow drug dealers have more rights than alleged terrorists. Think about that. And I'm not saying that this situation is acceptable. Because like I said, with regards to the Somali pirates, they arrest them, they go after them, they have rules of engagement. They have rules of engagement that are closer to law enforcement than anti-terrorism. Although one could argue Somali pirates could be treated a lot harsher than the run-of-the-mill criminal. But more importantly, it shows that it can be done. Small, fast boats, we can capture them. We can go after them. Because if you're willing to shoot to kill, then you should be willing to shoot the engines to disable. Now, when you hear some of what she said, it seems though how far, not necessarily the concept, or actually, yes, the concept, because one of the things she said is criminals do not operate under morality, rules of law, under being the good guy. I'm paraphrasing here, right? They don't operate like the rest of us. They don't conform to certain standards of behavior like the rest of us. So, and this is one of those controversial ethical questions that have existed for time immemorial, for probably as long as man has committed violence against another man, or humans have committed violence against other humans. It goes like this. If they are willing to stoop low and commit these acts that we believe to be barbaric, out of bounds, etc., then why should we not be able to fight fire with fire? And usually the argument is you have to be careful, don't stoop as low as your opponent because you might become the thing that you are trying to defeat, the thing that you hate. The flip side to that is, I would say in this case, it won't be quite that direct. I doubt governments are going to become drug dealers. Yes, I understand there's the whole thing about the CIA and all of that. And their alleged drug dealings, I'll say alleged. But in this case, it isn't so much that they will become the thing that they hate directly. They will become the thing that they hate in the sense of, if we're willing to go there, if we're willing to remove the safeguards of society against extreme violence by the state that is potentially unwarranted, that is potentially unnecessary and undeserved, that could be applied elsewhere. The state might not become violent drug dealing criminals, but the state might become a proponent or a practitioner of excessive violence. The Prime Minister also went on to say, don't weaponize the climate change agenda. And this is very much in line with, I believe, loosely, Republican/conservative thinking on climate change. And this reached the point where David Abdullah called her out on the US-Venezuelan violence situation and on the climate change comments. And one of the things that he said is she has adopted an antagonistic approach, right? Pointed to the United States withdrawing from the Paris Climate Accord as an antagonistic approach. Here's the problem. I'm not entirely certain that the Paris Climate Accords or most climate agreements by nations actually are effective, are practical, are done in good faith. Because this is international politics. Climate goals had certain economic agendas and political agendas involved in them. I'll always go back to what I saw with regards to African use of coal. This is before COVID. Europe said, no, COVID bad, you need to stop using coal because it's bad for the environment. And certain stakeholders in Africa said, time out, you all got rich off of coal because it was cheap energy. Who are you to tell us we can't use coal? All of a sudden you have science that says this is bad. That's very convenient when you're already trying to transition out of it. Now, to be fair, they did give up coal mines that once the Ukraine war started and energy prices and energy supplies got difficult, they had to go back to coal. Hypocritical much? We care about the climate and the environment, but even Europe, who had countries that were leading the charge on green energy and trying to reverse climate change, they went back to coal when necessity hit them. The thing about climate science is I think a lot of the politics behind it oversimplifies the science, and a lot of the activism behind it also oversimplifies the science. I have no issues with developing renewables and starting to implement them because even without climate change, countries like ours especially need alternative forms of energy. And unless nuclear becomes scalable to that degree, which it might, because I do think, ironically, you want clean energy, nuclear is clean. Particularly, let's not look at reactor technology from the 60s and 70s. This is 2025. So, but I get what he's saying though. With regards to climate change, I understand where he's coming from. I'm not saying it's totally wrong. I think though a lot of it is more in the middle, because you can't necessarily, look, if Germany could do it, that means that there is a point where your economic needs apparently trumps climate change concerns. Because Germany was one of the countries that was pushing green energy to the point where they quadrupled their energy prices when they transitioned, because you still needed to have natural gas plants running at the same time. This was all a political agenda, an international economic agenda. Who wanted to be the leaders in the next big thing? The problem is the technology couldn't move as fast as the politics wanted it to move. And now we regressed because reality and Murphy's Law slapped the world in the face in the last 5 years. But with regards to the violence in Venezuela, those are pertinent questions. But to our Prime Minister now, it's a very interesting place, and I'll try and be quick with this. First of all, we want international help. Do we have the right, maybe, or the capacity, probably not, to dictate to the Americans how they do whatever it is they do with regards to transnational crime in the region? We could not necessarily support it, and perhaps those that want to say how the Prime Minister is speaking on the matter, they may have issue with. But I go back to where I started. I think there are people who want this done, and by people I don't mean politicians and technocrats. I mean common citizens, not just in TNT, but around the region. Case in point, apparently at the same time there was the Caribbean Global Leader Awards, or Caribbean Global Award, sorry. And she got the People's Choice Award, ahead of Ralph Gonsalves, who was second, and Mia Mottley, who was third, which, I'll be honest, I'm not entirely sure. I guess maybe what has Mia Mottley done recently to warrant recognition, as in, you know, what major policy decision or what have you, right? Ralph Gonsalves, yes, he's to some extent done more. He's put more skin in the game, where he's come out and spoken on behalf of his nation's biases and needs and agendas in the whole US, Venezuela, Guyana situations. And that might not be popular, so, but you know what? He's putting himself out there, right? He's giving a definitive position, whether we like it or we don't like it. And he's exposing himself to being disliked. So maybe that's why he came second. I could at least respect him for that, even if I don't agree with the decision. But Kamala Persad-Bissessar, this is a Caribbean popular vote. Now, I tried to find the criteria for it, but I couldn't. But she won it. And it doesn't say TNT. I don't know if all of her supporters were from Trinidad and Tobago or if she got support from the Caribbean. That'll be interesting metadata to know, because if it's around the Caribbean, then that lends to the fact that there's at least a subset of the entire regional population that is disagreeing with the whole, this is a zone of peace. In part because they're saying, we rather not have it, we rather stop, we would rather not have to dodge bullets in our own backyard in the so-called zone of peace. Potentially, I think TNT's murder rate might be enough. I'm not too sure, but the criteria for a war zone is not that high as one would think. Meanwhile, oh, one more thing. The Prime Minister has, by observational analysis, is pro-United States, at least on this issue. Except I do believe she's not necessarily in line. Let me just double check here. I don't think she's in line with supporting Israel in the Israel-Palestine-Gaza situation. But more importantly, it was also announced that we got $94 million and a grant from China to implement mutually agreed projects under an agreement on economic and technical cooperation. Now, let's just say the United States and China are not allies. So if you want to say she is siding with America on this issue with regards to transnational crime in the region, that's fine. If you want to say she's siding with America, full stop, I don't know if that's pertinent or accurate. And then, the last thing I'll say is, there was apparently, I didn't necessarily see it, but I've been told there was a hullabaloo about her outfit. All I'll say is this. First of all, was it public funds or private funds that she spent? Because allegedly it was a $30,000 outfit. And if it was private funds and you want to ask why does she have $30,000 to spend on a dress, that's a separate conversation to have. But I do think someone in her position, legitimately, if they really wanted to spend $30,000 on a dress, they could, right? Not saying that they could just throw away $30,000, but if they wanted to, I think one time they could. Because how many times do you speak at the UN as the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, or any Caribbean country, right? This is only the second time she's been Prime Minister. So I don't have an issue if she wanted to spend a lot of her money, assuming it's her money, or even if she had an allowance. I don't know if the allowance should be $30,000. So if she wanted to add to the allowance for her wardrobe, but she wanted to look nice for international cameras. I'm not going to fault her for that. We have seen too many instances in modern society where, especially women, men get away with this a little bit more. But if women dress poorly, they could be an anchor for news, they could be a host of a sports show, they could be a politician, they could be a businesswoman. Anybody in front of a camera that's a woman that dresses poorly will be criticized. They could be an entertainer, an actress, a K-pop star. They will be criticized for their wardrobe choices. So if she is like, I'm going to the UN, I'm going to have a lot of cameras of the international community on me, I want to look good, I want to spend my money to look good. It's not like I'm doing this every week, and we're like, where does she get $30,000 every week? But hey, I get it. The government, to be fair, is pinching pennies. So if we want to, pinch pennies too, and again, I'm not saying it's our money. If it was all our money, then maybe there's a question there. But if it was her, if the Prime Minister spent her own money on her outfit, great. She's committed to doing the best she can on the world stage as the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. I would argue the reverse might be worse. Let's take a break. ASP is here. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after this.
Low energy? Heart concerns? Migraines slowing you down? It's time to take control of your health. Join Wellness Unlocked, the series that brings expert advice and real solutions for a healthier you. In our latest episode, learn how Jameson CoQ10 can help support heart health, boost energy, and even reduce migraines. Get the science, the stories, and the steps to power up your health with CoQ10. Don't miss Wellness Unlocked. Watch now on WESN and start your wellness journey today.
Do you need treatment for obesity or any related abdominal procedures? The community hospital now offers minimally invasive laparoscopic surgery done by an American-trained, board-certified surgeon with over 20 years' experience. Give us a call at 235-5479 for more information.
The Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
If these walls could talk, they'd cry uncle. They didn't plan to become offices or yoga studios. But they've stood by us, even when we got a little stir-crazy. For that, they deserve some thanks. They deserve Benjamin Moore.
SM Group International Limited, your solutions partner for the latest innovations, brands and competent staff to meet your needs. We provide products and services in the following divisions: executive services, event rental and services, power and heavy equipment, construction and property management, food and beverage, aggregate and sales and distribution. Check out more on our products and services at www.smgrouptt.com. Contact us at 221-7445 or email at info@smgrouptt.com. We are SM Group International, your solutions partner.
Remember waking up early just to catch your favorite cartoons? WESN brings back those magical mornings with Retro Saturdays.
Thus, the Powerpuff Girls were born!
Where the young at heart relive the fun. Join us every Saturday from 8 a.m. to 12 noon, only on WESN, the content capital.
I'm back here on talking about the WSND Content Capital Show. Michael Small, joined by Acting ASP Christopher Arun, TTBS Media Ambassador, here to speak about road safety, something that you may have noticed is a little bit more of an issue ever since the traffic got worse when school reopened. It's almost as though how people drive is more inconsiderate because they want to get where they're going faster, and I would argue they're potentially using wrong strategies that do so.
Yeah, and many other strategies that seem to be affecting their judgment. Good day to you, Sean, your viewers and your colleagues. But what would have triggered the topic is really the recent accident. The TTPS would like to extend its condolences to the Rennie family on the passing of their family member who died as a result of a fatal road traffic accident on the priority bus route on Saturday, I believe. And you know, it was a very traumatic experience for the officers when I looked at the report, when I looked at the scene, many persons on the scene and whatnot. And you know, I don't want to go too much into details because of the trauma that some people experience. And the family could be watching in any case, and we just want to extend our condolences. But however, we saw it necessary to come out into the media and remind members of the public that, you know, to take their time on the nation's roadways. I'm not saying that Mr. Denny or Rennie was speeding or whatnot. However, it does seem that there were contributing factors, and the contributing factors are what we want to talk about today. Speed, wet roads, bad road conditions, driving under the influence, and this has nothing to do with the accident on Saturday. I'm just in general.
Yes, the accident may have been a catalyst to speak more broadly beyond the scope of the factors that may have led to the accident.
I don't have intimate details, and of course a postmortem would be done to decide to determine what his condition was at the time. However, that's separate and apart from what we want to talk about. We are seeing a number of road fatalities, as you said, as you indicated, with the recent opening of schools. And on the topic of schools, and you know, we have more kids on the road. We're approaching the Christmas season with basically, 3 months away from Christmas.
Yeah.
And it's a very hectic time for members of the public. And the roads are going to be very congested. And at times, people will, when the congestion eases, you know, they want to take the opportunity of the space and speed. And there are conditions that you are required to follow when speeding, and you stay within the speed limit, of course. It's 100 kilometers on certain highways.
I would just like to point out, because I had this conversation, and I think the person didn't understand where I'm coming from. If I'm driving near the speed limit,
right.
So in theory, no one should be overtaking me, because if they're driving at the speed limit, they will never reach the point where they've reached me to need to overtake me.
Right.
Right? And I'm not saying that you should drive at the speed limit. I have done that at times when, you know, for whatever reason, I'm like, okay, I want to be faster. I've actually driven on the highway like as slow as 60 something to 70 on the left lane. Yeah. Just like I don't know if people can afford gas right now, okay? I'm just saying. But what I will never understand is if I am at 90, because that's where I like to be. I like to have some room. I don't want to be at 100, right? If I'm at 90, and of course it'll hover, you know, depending on your foot, you know, it might climb up to 100 or whatever. And then some guy is not just overtaking me, but he's going.
Yeah.
And there are times when, if it's night and the road conditions are bad, because you're saying, adjust to the road conditions, right?
Correct, yeah.
If the road conditions are bad and you're what I could estimate as being like 120, 130, 140, and it's nighttime, are you going to see that pothole in time?
Not necessarily, no. And you know, you make a good point with relation to the speeding and the road conditions, and if you're going to see it, it's just like you're speeding on the daylight as well. We have kids around who might be coming from school, going to and from school, and they often tend to be pedestrians or they're traveling. And as we all know, kids aren't 100% mentally developed at that age. You know, you are fully mentally developed at probably 25. So there are tendencies to make mistakes. And what is the chances of a child crossing the road improperly and you're speeding and a child is injured or, God forbid, killed because you were speeding or within the speed limit, but a child made a mistake and you won't be able to react in time.
But one of the things, reacting implies that you're looking.
Correct.
One of the things that I find interesting is at intersections. Now, I'm not saying that the driver made a bad drive, right? I just find it interesting that I see them waiting. And at some point, I realized for a significant period of time, while they're crossing me, they paid me no attention. I'm oncoming. It could be a roundabout. It could be an intersection.
You may have not seen them.
No, I'm looking at them. And I'm noticing that at some point,
they take no heed to you.
They made their decision that they could ignore me, even though I have the right of way, and they'll do their due.
They have the bounce attitude because they don't take even though we are taught at school, turn left, look left, then right, and left again, because of in Trinidad, how the vehicles are placed on the side of the road, on which side of the road. So you know, you're driving on the left side of the road, so you look left first and whatnot. So in crossing, a lot of pedestrians, we notice a lot of pedestrians, we call it, in vehicular traffic accidents, we call it heedless vehicular traffic. So you normally see this and people get bounced down and, you know, the family comes out and they find that, you know, the driver is wrong and he should get charged and whatnot, but the investigation must be done to determine if the driver is in fact negligent and whatnot. It's very difficult to prove a driver is negligent unless you're crossing at a crossing at a stop at a traffic light and whatnot.
Right.
And the point was also is that you need to be, that you were raising is that even though the driver you may have the right of way as a pedestrian at that point, it doesn't mean that you can't be injured or harmed because you didn't take the necessary precaution by looking left, right, and left again. Because the driver is coming towards you and he's not taking you on, he's on the phone, he's drinking a cup of coffee, he's distracted. You understand? So these things happen and we must all take part in how we use the roads together, whether pedestrian, cyclists, or
Isn't that a thing? It's almost like, well, if they bounce me, they'll be arrested. If they bounce me, they'll have consequences. Like, not necessarily, but more importantly, so what? So what if they have consequences? What does it matter to you if you're dead?
Exactly. So the worst case scenario is somebody could die, and you know the family grieves, and the person picks up a motor manslaughter charge. And what really happens when you pick up a motor manslaughter charge, you know, it's not life imprisonment that you get.
Right.
You know, I think the penalty is maximum penalty is life imprisonment.
But depending
on the conditions and the judge determines that, makes a decision based on all the extenuating circumstances and whatnot.
I just so happened, we did not sing this up because, you know, the ASP informed me today, you know, they want to speak out road safety because of an accident that happened. And if you do a quick Google search about traffic accidents in TNT, between pedestrians getting hit or, you know, road fatalities from drivers being killed, there's quite a few in the last month and a half, 2 months. But one of the things, as you mentioned, cell phones, people on the cell phone. Now I pull to the side of the road, right? Google Maps, I pull to the side of the road, right? Depending, because there's some point where you can't look at a map,
right?
You know, unless it's like it's like just giving you directions. If something goes wrong, you can't like try and sort out maps while driving. I saw a lady, big cell phone, white USB cable or power cable, right? Hooked in, and it was so bad she had it to her ear.
Yeah.
She's the driver.
But she moving it because
the car is driving.
Yeah.
She's driving the car. She didn't even have the awareness to be like, well, if I'm gonna break the law, at least let me not make it as obvious as possible to the entire wheel. Because she had the phone right up to her ear, and it's like almost out the window.
Yeah.
The way how she was leaning, right?
Okay.
Because she was leaning against the door, so like her head was like right. The window was open right there, like. The phone is not like in her hand. The phone, she's holding it so that she could hear the speaker, and it's plugged in, and you just see a big, obvious, thick cord, big red phone to her ear, right against the window that's open.
That's dangerous.
Like, it's not just dangerous because of distraction. It's also, to me, you're flouting. You're just blatantly disregarding the law. You're making it apparent to everybody. Hey, I'm not just distracted. I don't care that all of you all know that I'm distracted while driving this car.
Yeah, and then and the cell phone. I mean, there are laws in place for that, and you could simply put it on loudspeaker and have a conversation.
Yeah. All right. We have Digger Martin and we continue the conversation, but Digger Martin has called in, so we'll take the call. Pot stirrer, you're gonna come with something, I'm sure.
Good morning, Sean and ASP Arun. Your attire apparently is not brand, so the PNM troll can't go after all here, because I seen they're going after the Prime Minister for attire and questioning, because I don't know why they don't ask about the 50 million entertainment plus allowance that KCR, Keith Christopher Rowley, and the government budgeted for in the 2025 budget. That's a lot of money, and I'm still waiting to hear how it was spent. But my real question is, and is this to you, ASP? Investigation. I saw on the news they are waiting a response for 97 questions sent to the DCP I&I. ACP Simon said that he has sent 97 questions for DCP I&I, and he hasn't gotten a response. No, my issue is, my commissioner of police has said apparently they want him failed. That means the opposition. And I am saying all the proxies of the opposition might be part of this conspiracy. No, the fact that the lady in question hasn't been able to respond for 97 could be she's very, very, very busy, because she's all over the place, investigation and locking up and things, so she don't have no time. So in order to give her time, the POLSC has to tell her, take the time off, give yourself time to respond to it. That is what they do earlier. They tell Erla, take some time, administrative leave, so this investigation, the fact that this is so serious, you know, I look in my wallet to see if I have any money to pay for taxes for this. This is a big set of money. Jack wanted a set of money we had to spend, and this. And I heard your previous boss, Mr. Jacob, COP Jacob, said he gave the instructions, but another commissioner of police say no commissioner of police could give or have the authority to send police abroad. So Mr. Jacob has put him box himself. He has to come out and tell us if is Fitzy or the former National Security or the National Security Chairman gave them permission for that whole police team to take our aircraft in Trinidad, fly on it first class, and come back. So he's look at a lot of them have questions to answer. Go and have a nice morning.
Well,
I'm not sure if McDonald Jacobs was the commissioner when that happened, though.
For some reason, my memory doesn't serve me well.
I was always under the impression that Erla was the commissioner. I'm looking it up now.
Right.
Because they say it happened in 2022.
Well, there's very little I could say about the ongoing investigation.
She was appointed February 3rd, 23, so he might have been.
Right. So, yeah, there's very little I could say about that investigation. I have no information concerning that.
I'll say this. From what I understand, when Erla was initially arrested, she was then put on suspension by the Police Service Commission.
Right.
And you don't have to comment. I will say that I think the caller has a point, because as he was speaking, I came to the same mental conclusion and I started typing it out. But I think Erla was suspended. And the reason why that's pertinent is if the current DCP is too busy, because we're not talking about, oh, well, you had a paperwork error that caused some people's promotions to not go through,
right,
or we didn't buy enough paper clips last year, or something like that. We're talking about, well, a man potentially, by the Commonwealth definition of the word, was kidnapped by our own police on foreign soil, which technically is an international incident of, it's not that good for something like that to happen. So one could argue the subjects in the matter should be subjected to investigations, including the process of being interviewed, not being given questions and say answers on your own time.
Right. Well, Nicola spoke about DCP INI, and now we have a situation where DCP INI is a new person.
Right.
So you have Ms. George.
Oh,
yeah.
That's an important point.
Yes.
But I think, has that gone into effect quite just yet?
Yeah.
Okay.
On Friday then.
Okay.
Yeah. So she's now Ms. George is now the DCP INI, and Ms. Martin, I believe, is the DCP operations.
Yes.
Oh,
So-
I could be wrong.
No, yes, it's operations.
I think so.
It's operations.
Yeah, I know Mr.
Because
Benjamin is now the DCP admin.
Admin,
Yeah.
right. So if he's admin, she has to be operations because she was moved from INI.
Yeah, so Mr. Benjamin is coincidentally my boss now. So.
Right, okay. So, and I'll say this, I do appreciate the caller's point on that. I do think that the investigation should have prioritized the needs of the investigation and then the Service Commission. But that's a whole other thing with regards to why the Service Commission suspended one and then suspend the other, right?
But is it that she has to answer those questions? Is it not her right to answer or not answer?
Well, I mean, even if she was subject to an interview, I can imagine what you're going to do if she doesn't want to answer. I get that.
Yeah.
But I just find this, I didn't realize we were doing major investigations on well, we'll give you a list of questions. Like, let's put it this way. Well, Raji, Ali be like, where's my list of questions? Why you all have me locked up for? You understand?
Okay.
Like, how are we treating things with kids' gloves when the commissioner, someone ranked higher than her, was subjected to far more stringent treatment months ago? We're not even talking like 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And it's things like that where,
well,
I'm not saying there's a grand conspiracy to mistreat Ayla and thing. I don't think it's a grand conspiracy, but I do think that the inconsistency leaves people's questioning.
To clarify, the inconsistency could be because of the role that persons may play. So you have criminal liability and you have civil liability. So I'm not too sure the avenue the investigation is taken, because if it's criminal liability, then of course.
The irony is, we have one situation with the former commissioner that we don't even know technically what law she supposedly broke, whereas we have another situation where we kind of know that something went wrong somewhere that was serious.
Okay.
Right? So that's the thing. We have Sanford on the line. Caller, good morning, you're on the air.
Good morning, Sean. Good morning, SPR.
Good day, sir. Good day.
Well, Sean, I think your self-appointed girlfriend will be happy this morning.
That's a good way to put it. That's a good way to put it.
Don't I say self-appointed, eh?
Just by the way, it was my intention, but I totally forgot. So kudos to Master Control for playing the clip before we started the show. Very much appreciated.
Yeah, that was nice. Now, with respect to Ms. Martin and this issue about investigation and Mr. Simon and all of that, I said this and I'm going to say it again. The Commissioner of Police, present Commissioner, passed the buck. He said he sent the information to the Police Service Commission, but he has the authority to ask the Commission to put Ms. Martin on administrative leave if he so that investigation can take place, and he did not. He has the authority, and he should have asked them, send the information, say, I would like Ms. Martin to be put on administrative leave while this investigation takes place. But he didn't. He passed the buck by saying he sent the information to them and waiting for them to make a decision. Crap, as far as I'm concerned. Now, back to on Friday, Sean, with what I spoke to with you and Mr. Ali on the issue of the Freedom Information Request. I'm going to say this, Mr. Ali. I don't think both of you had a grasp of the situation when you all commented after I spoke. Because let me say this, Mr. Ali is incorrect. If it is that a freedom and the letter that was sent to the police service was from Mr. Guada's attorneys.
Yeah.
And let me say this. If it is that our freedom of information request goes to the police service, it goes to the commissioner, it has to go to the legal department. Legal has to respond to it.
Yeah.
Now let me say this as well. When that letter from ACP Smith and Ms. Martin, those two letters, those were done in January of this year. Mr. Guada's attorney's letter, freedom of information request letter, was done in September, early September, or late when Mr. Guada was detained. I think it would have been early at the beginning of September. So it's not that they don't have they don't have time. There was enough time there for them to respond. And what I am saying, and I repeat it again, within the Freedom of Information Act, between Section 25 and Section 28, there is sufficient cause inside there. If the police service did not want to give the information, they could have used one of those sections to say, this is a security issue, and we cannot fulfill your request. They did not do that in the response to Mr. Guada's attorney. They said they have no doubt, no correspondence. That's what they said. And I'm doubling down on that. They have no correspondence. And that is untrue. Because there was enough time in between there, between January. So it's not as if it happened the same week and legal couldn't get the information. And that's my point. The Commissioner of Police has to speak to the people in legal, because this was, and the problem is there is no recourse. The public, we have no recourse. Mr. Guada's attorney have no recourse because they refused on whatever grounds, and there is no penalty for them. And this is one of the things that the Freedom of Information Act has to be rewritten or amended, to put penalties for people when these things happen. I'm not taking no side here, no, Sean. I'm not taking side here. All I'm saying is that procedure, and this is another stain on the police service when you see the police service start to make a little inroads, something like this happen.
But what was Mr. Ali wrong about?
No, well, he said that legal might not have had the correspondence.
Okay, so what I've noticed as senior officer in the TTPS is that sometimes persons would send the email or the correspondence to us directly, and then we would have to send it to the commissioner or then the legal department, which is in Port of Spain. Then we would have to reroute it.
Right.
So people sometimes, without knowing, even attorneys, send it to us directly. So when I work at special victims,
when they're supposed to send it to
there is a process. So you're supposed to send it to the Commissioner of Police, of course. He sends it. His office would send it to the legal department, and the legal department would answer the query within the period. There is a stipulated period. Now, what I've seen persons do in special victims, and we've had to take a particular step, is that we would be conducting an investigation with a suspect. And before we even reach the suspect, while we're gathering the evidence, the suspect goes and applies for freedom of information under the Act and says, well, listen, I want to know what you have on me. So while we're trying to gather evidence one way to build up our case, you're applying under the Freedom of Information Act to see what we have so you could counteract anything we come with. So we've noticed that based on that, we would have a particular way in how we answer that query or that request for information. Because sometimes they get wind of it.
Because within the Act, there is provision for the police service to say, yes, to reply to say, it is under investigation,
Right.
it's a security matter,
Correct,
right?
yes.
And we can't reply.
Yeah.
But that was not the issue with this.
No,
thing
but-
they said, and that is that's why I'm taking umbrage with that. They reply, because there was
No,
letters.
they said they didn't have any correspondence. This is legal.
Yes, they didn't have any.
that could
when
happen.
when they actually had correspondence between Mr. Smith and Miss Martin and Miss Martin on the prison service.
Caller, and I think this is where Ashraf was coming from.
Yeah.
And I think perhaps I should have gone further, but it could have in part be because of time, because there were certain things that I couldn't get to on Friday, right? And sometimes I forget because it's too many things. We're not saying that it's right, but what we are saying is that legal might not have lied, because as far as they knew, because what ASP Arun is telling me is it's supposed to go through legal, and sometimes it doesn't, and when it doesn't, they're not aware.
So what we did, we used to send it to our legal officer. So we had a legal officer. So when you mistakenly sent it to us first at head office, we would send it to our legal officer whilst routing the correct way to the Commissioner of Police.
Now, this is,
so by the time it does
this is Freedom of Information Act, so this is correspondence.
Yeah, both. Yeah.
Right.
So,
correspondence is supposed to go through the legal department when it's from external to the
Not necessarily, no.
Not necessarily, okay.
No. If it's a legal issue. So sometimes a company, like I would receive correspondence from companies that are associated with fixing police vehicles and whatnot. And I would have to answer on behalf of the commissioner about these issues.
Right.
And if I find that it is it's out of my my way to speak on it, I could send it further up the chain or back down.
I mean, that's kind of crazy that you have to technically speak on for the commissioner without necessarily
because
consulting the
sometimes it
commissioner.
be a simple issue, you know.
I guess.
That, yeah. So then it depends on what the correspondence is. But when it comes to a legal issue, it has to go to the legal department through the commissioner of police.
Now, again, we're not entirely sure, but I think what happens is based on the officer's experiences, I think this is a situation where, with regards to the legal department, don't attribute to malice what can be due to, in this case, the literal sense of ignorance, not the disparaging meaning. Or you could go a step further if you want and ask, is there incompetence involved, whether the legal department or the people that had to conduct with them. With regards to the senior officers, it's more open to direct criticism, right, on how it was handled. And I'll leave that there.
And I understand. No, and let me double down. Let me go back to one thing. As I said, with respect to the commissioner and Ms. Martin, this thing is, it reeks of, as I said before, the police service seems to be protecting these politicians because Ms. Martin, when she did what she did to go and pick up Brent Thomas, she didn't have the authority to do these things that happened, that caused that the aircraft and go to Barbados and get. She didn't have that. She was not of that. She didn't have that rank. So it's politicians in this country that did that.
According to the Act, you're speaking about the Commissioner of Police, but according to the Act, he can't discipline the Deputy Commissioner.
But he's talking about the investigation. And how I guess how also the current
investigation. What I'm saying is that all he said he sent the information to the Police Service Commission, but he can't ask them to put an administrative leave while the investigation takes place, and he didn't do that. And I am saying that
the question might be, does he want to take a particular side in asking, or does he want to?
I don't think it's taken a side.
No, but he doesn't want to probably show any biases on anybody's part, including himself.
There's one thing, Caller, and I think this is similar to how he might be trying to avoid the situation that the Chief Justice got himself caught up with Marcia Caesar.
Good word, Sean.
Right? In the sense of if he goes right, because when you said he could do this, I'm like, I don't know if he could tell the Police Service Commission, but he could ask. But if he does ask,
he could recommend.
Right? If he does recommend, then to what extent is that out of bounds or going too far? And then she could say, hey, this is unfair, and blah, 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 blah. And so to what ASP Arun is saying, he might be trying to not be viewed as though he's prejudicing the situation. Right? Leave it up to the Police Service Commission. I actually understand where you're coming from, but I would blame more the Service Commission than the Commissioner in this case. Although, I also have said in the past, the government should just, you know, figure out a way to fire and pay the damages after the fact, or something like that, perhaps, right? Or it might be one of those things where it might be that bad. I don't know what the evidence is. That's the problem.
Yeah, but the thing is, the situation occurred, and okay, Miss Martin did what she had to do, which she was in, and I believe what she was instructed to do.
Yes, yes. So that's why. Yes.
And the instructions had to come from higher up, and that is where the higher ups need to be held to account. And as I said, this is where, when in politics, when across the board they protect one another, don't matter the side for certain things, and this is one of those things where they're protecting whatever side it is, getting protected, and the other side not going to call them out. Good day, gentlemen.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I think the caller has a very good
Sorry, I was rushed when I said about Ms. Martin. Depending on what the evidence is, depending on, you know, to what extent is she culpable or what they uncover, right? That could be on the table, but based on what we know, there's not enough to say that she is responsible for this Brent Thomas thing. She was just the officer. She wasn't even DCP then. I think her rank was senior superintendent at the time.
If it was, yeah,
right?
She was in charge of PSB at the time, yeah.
I just want to say, we have Kuvan, and I just want to say, with regards to the letter thing, you are right. I hope no one thinks that I'm kind of trying to downplay Mr. Savannah's concern over that freedom of information request. He is correct. It does look bad. It does look bad. So even if it was the case that legal didn't lie and everything was done, you know, legally and correctly and what have you, it looks bad with regards to the public opinion, court of public opinion. Then it was revealed that no, there was correspondence, right? We don't know who had it, what had it, who didn't reveal or disclose to the legal department, if that's the case, that they didn't have it. So it does look bad. And hopefully we get answers, I doubt. Kufa on the line, good morning, caller, you're on here. Morning.
I see my boy Cutty here and he looking nice this morning. Congratulations for the advice. But I need to say to you that there is a lot of things people are saying and they're not sure or don't know. The conversation with Suzette Martin. Suzette Martin is a trained person in the job. Nothing about it. She went around it the correct way. But because of the laws and who you know, he was able to get away. How come you have Molotov, this Molotov cocktail, whatever it's called it, the bombs to throw, yes. How come?
So,
you understand?
Yeah, he was a dealer. So
he was a weapons dealer for the state.
Yeah. So we purchased.
And the reporters.
I have a problem with people saying what they don't know.
No, he's
right?
But caller, what we do know is that he was a legal arms dealer for the state.
We purchased
that the state purchased.
Not for the police.
Well, for the state.
Is this girl had it?
They would use more than one, and in fact, if he's selling assault rifles and grenades, one would hope it's not for the police because that's not police equipment. Grenades.
The army.
That's for the army, right? So the thing is, the problem is, it seemed as though commissioners were basically approving things in manners that they were not supposed to approve of it.
All right.
Because it didn't start when he was arrested.
No.
That was known.
Long before.
What he was doing long before.
They know this. We know
right?
what he was doing.
Right. So, and
let me.
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to talk about the Coast Guard boat that they give things. People that's when you run them out. Coast Guard, those people get back their boat. It always has somebody to sell them Lego the boat. They ain't do nothing about Coast Guard sell no boat. The owners took back their boat because they couldn't keep it that long without going to court. So they give back the people their boat. And that's as far as I can say today. Have a blessed morning. And keep looking nice. Okay?
Thank you, caller.
Keep making yourself pretty. Right.
Same phrase to you.
Yeah, that was the caller from last week. What I want to say, yeah, I think I went over that. I think the commissioner is trying to not have a situation where, you know, a lawsuit could come after the fact because of procedural issues or interpretations. I actually don't think what the Chief Justice did was that far out of bounds, but if he did break procedure, he should have maybe not do that. It is what it is, though. It leaves the whole situation in a mess, but let's not forget, Marcia Caesar, it wasn't as though she was innocent. Now, the Suzette Martin thing is actually not as stark, because while we know something wrong happened there, no one believes, based on what we know, that she was the decision maker in that action. And that's more important than the people that went there to do whatever, right? But unfortunately, she's the highest ranking person that is known, so it will still hang over her head. We have Claxton on the line. Good morning, caller, you on the air.
Yeah.
Morning, morning. Mute the TV,
yeah,
caller,
morning.
mute the TV.
Yeah. Morning, morning.
Good day.
Morning. Yeah, morning, Sean, and
Good day, good day.
the acting inspector or whatever. You know, there's a lot of things shown that the police just protect. Everybody know that now because so much of drugs and guns and all kind of thing. And up to this day, we don't hear nothing about it. All we hear is investigation taking place. The amount of people dead 10 and 20 years ago, and investigation is still taking place. So on both sides, we know the police protect who they want to protect. You understand? On both sides, and then come and give us a story out here. So when you ask yourself, how does we really work crime to really stop? When right in the heart of the situation, you have people knowing the wrong thing taking place, but they have to protect them because of who it is or what it is. The other thing you just see, it depends on who is wrong. They will make a big hullabaloo about it. You too, Sean, will do that. And who is right and which side it is, you tend to glorify it. And on the other side, it's just to go hush, hush. That all these things just be going on. These are things what be going on right through. There are people who glorify one side when the wrong is there, and when the wrong is on the other side, they keep it hush, hush. You understand? These are things going on for years, not now. Years that happening. Yeah. So, and we have to ask yourself, how does we want to stop crime? When it starts from right inside the house, and we're not dealing with it. You understand? The other thing is the Constitution. This year, we have a lot of slave laws and all these things still on the books. The government every day have a majority. You think she will want to say constitution reform so we could change these slave laws so we could have the country go correct? All these are things where we had to ask. They have a majority. They have plenty work to do. Let me get on with the people business. Thank you.
Well, I mean, the column does seem to be affected by how the TTPS used to operate in terms of giving out information. I mean, we have actually changed our methodology. We've come out in the open now. We've been a little bit more open in terms of how we correspond with persons. You have the Freedom of Information Act. You have us as media ambassadors. You have the TTPS coming out every day on the media and saying, well, listen, this is the investigation going on, this, and not everything we could reveal. Now, this is totally different from years gone by when we had very limited amount of information to give.
The problem is better is not always solving the problem.
Yeah,
right?
I understand. So, the members of the public make their decision based on their perception.
Yes.
So their perception is that the police is hiding something, when it could be that the police is just basically trying not to give out too much information
right, but here's the
or
thing.
evidence.
One of the metadata or microdata things that the commissioner could have with regards to the whole DCP Martin situation is to say what he is not willing to speak about and outline those reasons for the investigation, for Be proactive about it. I started the show before you reached the studio saying managing expectations, not spin, not lying, not revealing information, just managing expectations, right? knowing what you can and cannot say.
Probably given a timeline.
And being proactive with the explanations up front, because anything you respond to retroactively, that's damage control.
Yeah.
So if he now says, well, I can't speak about this or I can't speak about that because of that, if you didn't say it proactively, the perception now, whether it's right or wrong, because this is how it usually comes across, because this is how it usually is. It's not that you are, okay, I'm trying to explain. It's like, oh no, I'm trying to damage control you because I didn't really want to speak about it because I didn't know how to speak about it.
No, I understand what you're saying, Sean, but what I'm also saying is that he may not want to get involved in something that he didn't initially dealt with.
I understand that, but the problem is, and too many public figures think, well, I could leave a vacuum out there and it will not blow back on me. Because if I say the wrong thing, it will blow back on me. The problem is vacuums usually blow back on you first before anybody else.
No, but he has left it up to the procedure to deal with it.
I understand that. And the fact of the matter is you could still do that on a practical level. But that doesn't mean that you can't communicate things to manage the people's expectations. And then what does not help, listen, I'm not saying it's fair. But you said it, it's about public perception, right? So part of the issue is when the Minister of Homeland Security is also operating in a similar methodology, which is not too dissimilar to, well, it's better than how Fitzgerald Hines said it when he just said, well, why am I supposed to have a plan? He's at least saying, I'm not going to reveal anything. The problem is there's a difference between not revealing tactical information, operational information, and not revealing anything.
No, I understand.
Because hiding the fact that police have cars is not going to prevent criminals. Well, yeah, but I see police in cars.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if the state purchases new police cars, there's no way to keep that a tactical surprise.
Yeah.
It's like, we purchased new cars at some point.
I think he was hoping, or maybe this is my thought, this is just my opinion, he is hoping, or maybe he's thinking that by now it would have been dealt with. That the procedure would have been followed through and addressed, and it may have come because he came and met the situation. For him to come and pull, he said no.
That is very fair.
For him to come and pull, he said no. To me, is out of.
See, this is where the job is hard.
Yeah.
Right? And I can't even say I know the best thing to do. That's one of the reasons why I will never be a good police commissioner. It's not just about can you lead policing. It's also can you do the public communications of the role. And the problem is what makes it further unfair. Because I agree with you, the police service actually does more than just about any other entity in the country when it comes to public relations.
So you're trying to improve on that. The caller made that point.
But part of what is unfair about it is it's within the political environment and the environment of what is public relations by public officials, whether state entities, state companies, state utilities, politicians, parliamentarians, whatever, And the police service is wrapped up in that, as well as all of the public or lack thereof communications on national security, which the police is also the best at, but it's still, there's a deficiency that compounds the perception because you all are the main unit involved. So any Minister of Homeland Security, or just the political environment, because of speculation on political interference and the like, it's just one of the public perception is a situation that will never be fair, that will never be reasonable, that will never be logical, right? And this is why those leaders, whether it is the head of a police service or the head of a country or the head of a company, that could manage that well, right? And I think some of the tricks, like Steve Jobs when he was marketing for Apple, because he was basically he made Apple seem like the be-all and end-all. And now that he's gone, Apple doesn't look so mysterious anymore, right? He was proactive about it. He didn't try and react and respond to things.
He's solely productive.
He set the foundation. This is the message I'm putting out there. Right? Not necessarily revealing this is how the wiring goes into the iPhone or anything like that. He didn't necessarily tell you the secrets and the source of how they did their business, right? But he was able to do a lot of aggressive communication to position his company.
I understand. And I see that the perception is an issue for us. However, there's not everything we could come out and tell members of the public. And I do think that the current commissioner of police is making a better effort to be
Yes,
more
he is.
open.
Yes, he is.
To communicate his opinion and his actions and his intentions. I think he is doing a better job at it.
The problem is, it is unfair on two counts. Not only is the situation just naturally unfair, but as you pointed out, he's meeting a lot of these things that's all, like this investigation, and then the whole environment of Ayla was arrested and this happened and who did what and what politician did this and the service commission collapsed and they had to replace it and I had to replace it again and all of this jazz. He's meeting all of this baggage of which arguably in his previous position he can't even say he was a junior directly involved in some of this mess, right?
On that point, I think he should be given the opportunity any time to address the situation.
I think even the current administration is in a similar situation where the public perception, some of the negative public perception for them is our expectations from the last administration is so bad and so low. They themselves are running afoul of that.
And I honestly think that this commissioner of police shouldn't be judged.
But you see, it's the public, like one person could be reasonable. You could reason with a person, but you can never reason with, on that level, an entire society.
I think he's very open. I think he shouldn't be judged on the past operations actions of previous commissioners of police.
Well, no, that is correct. That is very correct, because that just makes no sense.
To be honest, I've actually had communication with him one-on-one and whatnot, and he does seem to be very open-minded and whatnot.
Not just open-minded, you could tell that his capacity to speak publicly is greater than his predecessors, right? So that and all is appreciated. It's just, it's a mountain. Like, this is one of those things where the job is that difficult. It's already difficult, but it's made more difficult.
And again, he's faced with a number of issues in the TTPS in the country with respect to crime. And to take all his attention and put it on one issue that the members of the public wants answers to, when he believes, and I think this is my opinion, I think he's trying to allow the procedure to take place and give it time.
Here's the thing though, with all that I just said, he doesn't have to clean everything up to be successful, right? Again, it's perception, but this is where, yes, if he is able to improve things, at least to me,
we haven't seen
that would be a successful tenure.
Since he's come into office, and we've really not had a problem with kidnappings before, but even now, with his attention to crime, even with the kidnappings, you have not seen a successful kidnapping.
Okay.
You know?
Okay.
So thus far, since his tenure.
Speculation is the situation might get worse because the drug money is... Anyway, I won't go into all of that because I won't ask you to comment on that. That might go a little too far in your capacity.
Well, that is speculation.
But we have a comment to put up. I want to take this comment. When our Prime Minister doesn't even understand that a zone of peace refers to a zone free of military conflict, then I'm not surprised she has little understanding of geopolitics. Here's the problem. Is it a military conflict? It's not a military conflict yet, because they're not shooting on military targets, which is ironically the problem, which then ironically is the problem with this statement. This statement, in my opinion, does not accurately convey what's going on. And the reason why the situation in the Southern Caribbean is an issue actually kind of works against this statement, right? And also, and I've been saying, what is the point of having a zone of peace if our criminal murder rates rivals certain criteria to declare it a region as a war zone? I think it's like deaths per capita in a given time frame or something like that. I can't remember. It doesn't have to be that high. I can't remember if it's war zone or if it's some other thing, but it's not. I don't believe it's something like a criminal situation. It's like it's a severe not definition, but a way to classify our situation that we wouldn't necessarily think to apply to our situation, right?
And our murder rate is very high.
But also, it's across the Caribbean, not so? At one point, I don't know about recently, but at one point, all sorts of small islands were basically like, we don't even know how to deal with this because we've never had anything else before, right? And so it was regional. I'm not saying what the Americans are doing are correct. I'm just saying, if we don't see regime change, I hope a lot of people aren't going to be in hindsight, well, he was too afraid to do regime change. I said that he might be too afraid to do regime change, but people seem to be not caring about that right now. The longer this goes on where they just take some pot shots at Venezuela and go-fast boats / fishing vessels. We don't know for sure what they are, right? Smugglers or just people at the wrong place at the wrong time that got killed, and this is why you don't just shoot first and ask questions later, because they might not have been drug smugglers. We don't know. But as long as that's all they're doing, notice he's very concerned about there haven't been any American casualties. That's one of the reasons why I think we ain't going to see things escalate beyond this point. It's very easy for them to just do what they're doing. They risk no lives. They risk no American bodies and caskets. They just expend a few, not even a lot of missiles, just a few missiles here and there. They scare the bejesus out of drug smugglers, and it just suspends the situation for a little while. And we're seeing some benefits, right, with regards to the flow of drugs in the country. So I think that's enough of a win for him. This is to say President Trump with regards to drug smuggling. I could be wrong, but I do feel that they have a very large aversion to American bodies and caskets, and it doesn't need to be a lot. It could be one, right? It's a very sensitive matter when American troops die. So, especially for something controversial, what happened after 9/11 did not help. All right. I don't agree with the strikes. I'm just saying I don't necessarily agree with the whole zone of peace situation. Now, I don't know if we have, we were speaking about road traffic fatalities when we started taking the calls. And I was hoping to just, as we wrap things up, right? I don't know if we have another call there, but as we wrap things up, I don't know if you have any last things that you wanna mention.
Yeah, just to go back to the original topic that, we want members of the public, all members of the public, whether you're a driver, cyclist, pedestrian, whatever part of the road you use, be very careful and take into consideration the other road users, so that we can have less. We are coming into the Christmas season. We're going to have lots more traffic, lots more congestion. We're going to have a lot more police officers on the roadway, and and law enforcement. And we want persons to be very careful. There are, I'm seeing situations where people are attending parties, they're having drinks with friends and family, and those same friends and family are allowing them to leave in a vehicle under the influence.
I mean, isn't this what we've done as a culture, as a society for donkey years?
Yeah, but I as a police officer, as law enforcement,
don't do it.
I had to come and warn people to stop doing it.
But then also, given the fact that there's more cars on the road and people drive recklessly already, like it's one thing back in the day when maybe there were less cars.
Well, yeah.
But now?
But we need to also, and you brought up a point, it's culture, let's change it. Why can't we adopt the culture of being the best drivers in the world? Why can't we adopt the culture of not driving?
They think they're the best drivers in the world. That's why they go at 160.
Why do we have to drink and drive? Why do we could call?
We're the best drivers in the world.
We could call a taxi. Now we have technology. We could have somebody drive. Why are we allowing friends that you cannot be with me, Lyman, and I allow you to go into a vehicle, drive in a vehicle? You can't do that unless if you're drinking.
They are always right until the one time they're wrong.
Yeah.
The problem is that's usually the last time they have a chance to be wrong.
Observe the rules of the roadway. Observe the rules of using a vehicle on the roadway. You brought up the point of driving on a roadway and somebody passes you at over 100 kilometers an hour. Just remember the rules of the highways that you stay left unless you're overtaken. So if you want to go on the right-hand side, on the far right, and stay there at 100 kilometers, you get a ticket for failing to observe the traffic laws.
Okay.
Yeah? Failing to keep left, I guess. That is the offense. So.
They need to fix some of the left lanes on some parts of the highway, just say, you know? Just say, it's kind of, even driving slow on those parts of the highway is bad for your car, right? Yeah. So that's why I would have thought, okay, if driving slow could ruin my car on the left, then let me drive fast on the right, right? Because
for some reason in Trinidad, you can get through the left lane traffic faster than the right lane traffic. Everybody goes on the right lane.
Sometimes.
On the highway. No. Almost all the time.
No, well,
almost.
I don't drive on rush hour. So yes, I think I don't drive like weekly on the highway. Yeah. So days that you drive, I could see where that is, because everybody just assumes.
Yeah.
But with that said, I will just say this. I'm not entirely sure if one administration is covering for the other, but I think the problem that politicians, like what I just said about police commissioner, they need to understand, it's not about what's reasonable or what actually is, it's what the public perceives. And until you can manage the expectations of the public so that they will be willing to give you the benefit of the doubt, be prepared to have speculation against you. This is one for the PNM, this is one for UNC. And to the caller that says that I am biased for any one political party. Have you really listened to everything I said? The thing is, I might not agree with certain things based on my judgment, which I have applied to the PNM, because there have been things that I disagreed, criticisms on the PNM when they were in power. Certain things I didn't want to complain about, or I didn't see it certain ways, and ditto for the current administration. It is what it is. But with that said, thanks to the callers for calling in, thanks to the commenter for commenting, thanks to ASP Arun for joining me once again.
Thanks for having me.
Right, folks, this is Talking About WSN. I want to remind you, stay safe, have a good day. You can make it if you try. Remember your allegiance to the Republic and to each other. And never forget, it's nice to be nice, especially on the road if someone bad drives you or does anything that's questionable, because a lot of that happens even on a weekend. But thankfully, we're all here, and we want for all of us to be here tomorrow so we can see each other. Bye-bye until then.
WESN.
My name is Dr. Stephen Carroll, the CEO at Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist, and we are committed to making good private health care affordable.
For all your medical needs, including dental, radiology, laparoscopy, behavioral and mental health, along with many other services, contact us for more information at 235-5479.
Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist.